to run such an iconic building to such a high standard of catering, and obviously the backing of Matt, the Aria brand. We had Opera Bar. One of my claim to fames, Renae, is I've actually done 21 New Year's Eves at the Sydney Opera House.
Hello, my name is Renae Leith-Manos. Welcome to this podcast, Where to From Here, featuring conversations about luxury travel and how it's changing in every pocket of the globe. I'm here today in Sydney, Australia with Simon Sandall. I am really excited to talk to Simon because he was Matt Moran's right-hand man for some 16 or 17 years. As any of you know who know me, Matt and I have known each other for a really long time, but I don't know Simon, which is really bizarre. And he's opened a fantastic restaurant called Boronia Kitchen in Sydney's Hunters Hill, but he started his career in the early days at none other than the Ritz in London. So I'm really excited, Simon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's just great to be talking to an Australian.
Yeah, well, I'm actually English.
Okay, I beg your pardon. An English in
No.
Australia, Englishman in
Well,
Australia.
I'm English, but I've lived more of my natural life in Australia. So I've been here nearly 30 years. So I actually do. I'm a citizen. I've got 3 Australian kids and a beautiful wife, and 30 years. So I do class myself as Australian.
What brought you to Australia? And I mean, I've got 2 questions all at once. What brought you to Australia, and what got you into food in the first place?
I suppose what brought me to Australia was the fact that, like everybody else, I watched a lot of Home and Away and Neighbours, and working in the food industry back in the UK, and working in all the hotels, you'd finish quite late at night. So the thing that I used to watch was Prisoner Cell Block H. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
So that was always on at around about 11:30 midnight.
Wow.
So I watched that, and then I'd watch the AFL. And in them days, the AFL was quite brutal, and there was lots of fighting and all that sort of stuff. So I just went, I've got to come to Australia. I need to keep doing my food dream, and I went off and travelled the world and lived in the Greek islands and did a bit of time in Africa and all through the Middle East. So it was a pretty epic journey on its own. And I actually got to Australia with the plan of going to New Zealand and then heading off to South America. But I got here, Renae. I fell in love with Sydney. I forfeited my tickets to New Zealand and South America. I met my now beautiful wife, and we ended up staying. We've raised 3 beautiful children, and here we are now. So it's been a pretty exciting journey. What got me into food? Look, I think, if you actually go back and look at a lot of chefs of our area, I was a bit of a rat bag at school. I didn't really go to school per se, and I was sort of, that in that area of being told I was going to be a dropout and, and so on and this sort of stuff. And I fell in, my sister actually was seeing a guy at the time who actually went to catering college. And I just went, you know what, I love food. I started walking a dog for a lady that owned a restaurant, at the age of like 13.
Wow.
And then I slowly moved into her, and it was actually a vegetarian restaurant, which was quite unheard of all them years ago.
Where was it? Where was it in England?
That was in Rugby. So I'm from a little town called Rugby, where the game comes from.
I know it. I know. I've got a friend there, the Peabody family.
Right.
I mean, it's so small. Yeah, Luke Peabody's one of my friends he's now living in London, but he's from Rugby. There you go.
You know what? And that name rings a bell.
I'm not surprised.
Can I ask what age he is?
Yes, so he would be 45.
You're right. He's probably my younger brother's area. Probably
He's got a sister. He's got an older sister as well.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, do you know what? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's not some form of a connection in some capacity.
And Rugby people really like food, good food.
Yeah, look, do you know what? Rugby's, I mean, look, obviously we're famous for the school. We have got little pockets of great food. no, I'll be honest, I didn't have the best time being in rugby. So my whole plan was to get out as quick as possible. I went to catering college for a couple of years, the basics in catering. I actually had my teacher, because I was such a rat bag. My teacher, after 3 months, turned round to me and basically pulled me to one side, and I won't swear, but he basically said to me, "Simon, sort your or get out." You know what I mean? And
Wow.
that was actually a bit of an eye opener for me, because it sort of made me pull my head in, and I went from, out of 4 classes, I went from bottom of the class of the whole year, and I finished from grades third out of the whole 4 classes. And to this day, to my knowledge, I'm the only person that's still left in the industry.
Wow,
Yeah,
congratulations. That's not a
yeah.
small achievement.
No, so that was massive for me, because like I've got no school qualifications whatsoever. So,
Wow.
to go and do that and find out something you really love, and obviously be here now in Australia. I came to Australia with £12. I don't come from money in any capacity whatsoever. So, I have worked very hard, and I am very proud of that. I'm very
Oh,
proud of that.
as you should be. That's an inspiring story. And is it true
Mm.
that one of your first jobs was at the Ritz? I mean, that must have, given the story you've just shared, that must have
Well,
just been
then,
out of this world for you.
Well, it was. There's been a couple of iconic places, and we'll come to that down the track. But I got the opportunity to work in London. I actually did a stage at Claridge's prior to the Ritz. I don't put that on my resume, because I literally only did I think it was about 2.5 weeks there. I actually didn't enjoy Claridge's, although I love the hotel, and don't mean there's any disrespect whatsoever, but I was very young when I got to London, and the Claridge's was massive,
Oh,
and it
still
was,
is.
and
It
I
still
and
is.
it, well, it still is. That's right. And I can remember, after my first week watching these, I think it was a Dutch chef and a German chef actually start fisticuffing each other, because one guy had gone into the other guy's call room, and I'm going like, what the hell is going on here? So that was a bit of an eye opener. And then I went to the Ritz. So I was actually at the Ritz Casino with
Yep.
the late John King, and that was a massive eye opener. The casino, you had all the celebrities. Obviously, the hotel itself is just absolutely stunning. You had all the affiliation with the celebrities. I was working with John King. We did, in them days, we did lots of competition work. So I went around the country doing Hotel Olympia, southwest of England, and picked up numerous gold medals, silver medals, and bronze medals. So doing that competition work was obviously it was a big eye opener in the whole world of what goes on in London. At the
Yes.
same time, cooking some amazing food. My mum was so proud.
How much has food come on now? I mean, since those days, with respect, I mean,
Mm.
London food is world class, and it wasn't, all those years ago.
Yeah. I look, the food scene across England has definitely changed. But I think, having said that, I think the food scene across the world, Renae, has changed.
Agreed.
You know,
Agreed. And
I
continues to evolve, very
and
fast.
now very fast with social media and all the quick instant gratification from social media.
Mm.
People can see very, very quickly what people are doing. So, your learning capacity is sped up, tenfold. So,
How
um,
do you feel as a chef now, with the advent of social media, knowing that really, in reality, particularly for millennials, what your food looks like is almost more important than what it tastes like, and what the restaurant looks like on Instagram is also a part of that. How does that make you feel towards what you do?
to a degree, I agree with that. Yes, food has got to look pretty. There is no
Mm,
question. My train of thought with that is I would prefer flavor and taste paramounts
mm,
everything in my eyes. Obviously, it needs to look nice. There's no question, because to your point, social media gets out there very, very quickly. So if something looks terrible on a
instantly.
plate, it's not going to be obviously great for the business. But my whole thing is I say to all my guys is taste and flavor, and all them profiles become first, then we can work on the presentation. Because I think a lot of the kids, and back to the whole fact of social media, everyone's trying to make everything look super pretty, and I think what happens is flavour actually gets a little bit lost
Definitely.
in that process. So for me, flavour paramounts everything, and then we can work on the presentation. Because look, I mean, it's not hard to make stuff look pretty, as if you've got that sort of drive and want to be able to do that in the first place. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, absolutely. And tell us, how did you meet Matt Moran?
Matt, how did I meet Matt? Oh, I love telling this story. He actually rang me. So I was running Benelong with a guy called Andy Turner, who was an ex-Marco Pierre White boy, and now he worked with Marco in the early days on the pans. So he was
Wow.
one of the original guys, and we were running Benelong restaurant at Sydney Opera House. So I came to Australia, worked in the Orient Hotel. A friend of mine was working
At
at
the
the
Orient
Opera.
Hotel in the Rocks, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll go back a little bit here, Renae. So when I first got to Australia, I had this silly goatee. Some would say I've still got one, but I also had hair right down my back.
Wow.
And probably wasn't the best way of trying to get a job. So
Right.
I couldn't actually, regardless of my CV, and I think in them days, I think the English probably had a little bit of a bad name from jumping from job to job and not being loyal and so on. So I'd applied for a couple of jobs at, places like Number 7 at the Park Hyatt and got turned down. So I
Wow.
took a job. I came here with £12, so I had to work. So I got offered a job at the Orient Hotel, worked there. Then all of a sudden, about a week before Christmas, I got all these phone calls. But I'm very loyal. If someone gives me a chance, I won't stitch people up. It's not a part of my sort of, mantra, I suppose. It's, if people do right by me, I will do right by them until the dying end, right? So, everyone wanted me to work a week before Christmas. So I said, I can't do it. So I stayed at the Orient Hotel. I then had a friend that worked at the Opera House that I think about 7 or 8 months later put my name forward. I started working at the Opera House. So that sort of led me into the Benelong restaurant. And I got a phone call one Sunday night. And I was actually on the pass, and Andy Turner was on the pans. And we used to swap around just so we keep on our toes.
Yeah.
And the phone rang in the kitchen and said, hi, it's Matt Moran. I'm in the middle of fucking service. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm busy. And he goes, I just wanted to talk to you.
Did you know who he was when he said Matt Moran? Did you know who he was?
I had no idea. No idea who he was. No
Right.
idea. I said, look, I'll call you tomorrow. Give me a number, blah, blah. Put the phone down. And Andy, who's this like 6'4" unit, is bending down underneath the pass lights, looking at me. And I just looked at him. I goes, I should have taken that phone call, shouldn't I? And he went, yeah, probably. And it then came out. What I didn't know is Matt was selling Bomb Femme to Michael Moore and Andy Turner and trying to poach me to go to Aria.
Oh my goodness. How did he
Yeah,
know about you?
through Michael Moore. So
Right. Yeah, so
yeah,
he knew you through Michael Moore. So yeah. So then what? So he wanted you for Aria.
Well, Michael Moore was the food and beverage director of the Sydney Opera House.
Right.
So Michael had departed, and I would stayed on at Benelong. So Michael Moore and Matt Moran were besties. So Michael
Right.
had turned around and said, "You need to get hold of this guy." So he obviously was selling the restaurant, and then he was poaching me to go to Aria. So I went down to Aria. It was literally breeze blocks, an empty shell, but this absolutely amazing view in, as you know yourself, this controversial toaster building that everyone was, dooming and glooming.
Sydney had a love-hate relationship with it for a long time.
Oh, they hated it. But the thing is, me firsthand, I knew through working at the Opera House what the distance from the Opera House to Circular Quay, not having that building, it was like a death trap. And the amount of people that got, mugged and all that sort of stuff late at night, it was actually quite scary, Renae. So for me, it was like, it was a no-brainer. Put a beautiful building there, restaurants. Of course, it's going to create a bit more of a hub, you know what I mean? Instead of this, because it was quite an industrial space there for many, many years.
Yeah, 100%. And there was a lot of lobbying to stop the very building being built that's there now, where Aria is.
Yeah, and now look at it; it's iconic,
That's it. So hang on, so you went from the Opera House across the water to the Rocks for a bit, and then back to just near the Opera House to Aria.
Yeah, And then the funny thing is, then down the track, obviously, you know, we opened up Aria. I was Matt's head chef at Aria for just under 7 years. But in the meantime, Matt had taken over Opera Bar. So I sort of went back to the Opera House. And then we built Aria Catering at the Opera House. And I can remember saying to Matt, you know, when he's doing it, I said, "Oh, don't do it, buddy. Don't do it." And he managed to talk me into going.
Don't do it because it's too much work, or don't do it because...
Oh, because look, you know, the Opera House it's a beautiful place, and things have definitely changed. There's no question. You know, the people, the management, everything's changed. But in them days, it was, I don't know. I just saw it as a bit of a, you know, a lot of people not really knowing what they were doing, a bit of a money pit. So I just, you know, I didn't want Matt to go and do something that wasn't going to work. Anyway, look, we took it over. Matt talked me into going over and opening up Aria Catering. And look, to be honest, it was the best thing he ever did. You know, to run such an iconic building to such a high standard of catering, and, you know, obviously the backing of Matt, you know, the Aria brand, we had Opera Bar. You know, I'd do, you know, one of my claim to fames, Renae, is I've actually done 21 New Year's Eves at the Sydney Opera House.
Oh my goodness. And is it what it's cracked up to be, or are you in the kitchen the whole time?
No, it's a lot of planning. You know, you're 6 months in the planning when you're prepping for New Year's Eve, but you're feeding
6 months in the planning to prep for New Year's Eve. That's unbelievable. Why do you need so long?
Well, because you're doing between between 8 and 12,000 people, depending on what's going on. You're doing it over 8 to 10 different areas with different acts. You've got the Lord Mayors, you've got the Western Boardwalks, we had Benlong, we had Opera Bar, we had all the foyers, the pre-theatres. It was massive. So, you know, you obviously the planning and menu tasting and developments with all the different clients was, you know, it was an extraordinary task.
Wow. Very different to your days working in luxury hotels. I mean, the volume for a start.
Well, having said that, do you know what? The luxury hotels and that top end market taught me so much in organization, preparation. You know, I have this whole thing called the 6 Ps, and it's proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And it just works. If you plan properly, it will work. So on a given night, the New Year's Eve at the Opera House, generally my job was done by about 8 o'clock, unless I'm going to start putting some smoked salmon on a piece of, you know, crostini or something like that. My job was done, so I was able to mosey out and enjoy the party. You know what I mean? So
at the best location, arguably in the world, for New Year's Eve.
And do you know what? It was the best fun. It was the best fun. We had a lot of fun. Yeah.
And tell us some insider secrets about Matt Moran. I mean, you've been working, you know, next to the guy for all these years.
Yeah.
What's his secret to success? Tell us some insider stories.
Look, you know, Matt's a great guy, and I'm not, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you know, and I'm not, mate, we've worked, you know, very close on the tools in the early days. You know, Matt's very generous. He's very personable. I know some people, you know, would turn around and say, oh, he's scary, but he's actually one of the kindest guys I know, you know, and we're still best mates to this day. You know, I spend a lot of time on the farm with him. You know, we go out and see the cattle, but look, you know, it's Matt's secret to success. Look, he's driven, you know, Matt's, he works really, really hard, you know, and I think, you know, again, you know, this industry and what we do is, you know, if you're hungry enough, excuse the pun, you know, to work hard enough to go out there and get it, you know, it's there, you know. Matt, you know, is one of them guys that, again, he hasn't come from a great deal, but he's worked very, very hard, and he still works hard. I see him now, you know, and he works extremely hard in what he does, you know, bouncing from restaurant to restaurant, doing tastings, mentoring staff. You know, he's a big inspiration to me.
And how do both of you, I mean, how do you switch off? I mean, the hours that you work are diabolical. You just talked about New Year's Eve, but it's a 7-day-a-week business in a lot of cases. I don't know about Boronia if you actually get a day off, but I know you do at Boronia every service, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Not every day, but most days. Yeah.
Well, we shut on Monday and Tuesday. I also have a consultancy business, so I generally do all my consulting on Monday and Tuesday. But look, I don't think do you really ever switch off? I don't think you do. You know, I mean, we're in an industry that's ever evolving. You know, it is, 7 days a week. There's always something, going on. I look at it as more of a lifestyle. I don't look at it as a job, if I'm really honest. I think, it's that famous old saying, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. I get tired like everyone else, but, when you get tired, you sleep. And you rest. And I think as long as you can make time for the important things in your life, your children, your family, by any means working 7 days a week all the time. But I've just spent 6 weeks in Europe.
Beautiful.
So it's something I haven't done for a very long time, but there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel, regardless. So yes, how do you switch off? I go up to Muddy's farm and, we spend the weekend, going around the paddocks and eating good food.
Yeah. And what's the secret to the success of restaurants? I mean, you said you've just been in Europe for 6 weeks. You've recently, or not that recently, but you opened Boronia, your own restaurant. I mean, why are some restaurants just so successful and others aren't?
Look, I think consistency is, a word that, is probably paramount to everything. I think if you're consistent in everything you do, day in, day out, that is probably one of the biggest secrets. People think that they can walk away from businesses and they will carry on running. Unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily work like that. Restaurants, they're a hard game. And it's not, I mean, having good people around, actually, let me rephrase that. Having great people around you is really, really important. People that live and breathe your expectations, your
dream, right?
Your dream, your values, but also taking them on the journey. Like Matt did with me. Matt took me on the journey for 17 years. I mean, it's as much as I love him, there was a reason why I was there, because I was, I love the way they thought about the future of the restaurant game. I mean, when I finished at Aria, I said I actually resigned. And then Matt talked me into going to the Opera House and looking after Opera Bar and Aria catering, and then I nearly resigned again. And then Chiswick came up on the, and then I sort of saw where it was all going. We opened up Aria Brisbane, we opened up, River Bar and Kitchen, we opened up North Bondi Fish, Chiswick at the Gallery, and then there was all the bars and pubs that we were affiliated with as well. So for me,
it's phenomenal business, isn't it?
Oh, it's phenomenal. You're phenomenal. But that doesn't come through. Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't come from sitting back in your armchair, letting it all happen. That's hard work. There's no question.
And being in the right place at the right time, and he's built his reputation and you did alongside him. And tell me, when you were talking about the farm when you go out with Matt Moran, and what do you like to eat when you get the chance? And you've just been away to Europe. Do you like to travel and eat in luxury at high end? Do you eat across the board? What do you gravitate to as a chef?
I like a bit of everything, and I think, we went LA, Vegas, and New York to begin with. I took the kids to Disneyland. We went to Republic in LA, which was always a favorite stop off. They do sort of, it's same sort of narrative in the sense they do breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
So it's always good to get some ideas and some some stuff always about that sort of stuff. Then we went to Vegas. My kids wanted to go there. They're sort of in their early teens sort of thing. Stayed at the Bellagio Hotel, which was just beautiful. So having that little bit of luxury. And then New York, we had a Cat's Deli and some great taco places, burger places. But then I go to places like Gramercy Tavern. So it's about, for me, it's about just having a right balance of of everything. And I think because of my consultancy business, to eat in diverse places gives you ideas as to what's out there, and stuff that you could possibly bring back to Australia.
100%.
So, I mean, look, I actually took my son to Ibiza.
Oh, wow. Lucky boy.
I always wanted to go to Ibiza. And so we went to the Greek islands.
Yeah.
We went to Paros and Santorini.
Beautiful.
So
They're gorgeous, aren't they?
Well, I lived in Paris in
Oh,
93, 92, 93 for two
wow.
years and lived and worked on the island.
Oh, a lot different
So
now.
yeah, but it's same. There was a lot of old
Yeah.
friends there, and and I mean, look, it's modernized,
Yeah. The
but the
hotels and
food.
things have elevated.
Ah, from the hotel. Ah, the hotels are fantastic. I mean, the whole island's just developed, and obviously there's that top end luxury part as well. We jumped on a boat, and went around the island, and went to enter
Yeah.
Paris. I mean that was pretty much sort of vacant. 30 years ago. Now there's just buildings and hotels
Everywhere.
everywhere, which is beautiful. So, and I think that's where Tom Hanks lives as well. I think he's on Anti Paris.
I think he spends time there. I think you're right. But, a
Yeah,
lot of the celebrities spend time in Greece, I think because they can be anonymous there. It's one of the
yeah.
last places in the world where the paparazzi don't really hang out very much. And it's such
Mm.
an effort to chase people because you need boats, it's a big effort if the paps want to get them. So often they just don't bother.
Well, it's a 4 hour ferry drive just before you even get there, so
Yeah,
that probably
precisely.
puts them off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
Exactly.
so the food in Greece was amazing, and to be honest, it was just as I remembered it.
Yeah,
It
wow.
was really sort of just simple. You get a piece of fish that's been grilled, on a barbecue with some good olive oil, lemon, lots of salt. It's that sort of stuff, moussaka, all the classic Greek salad. I
Well,
still
they had
say
long lives, the Greeks, and the food has got to have something to do with it, right? The clean,
mm,
healthy, fresh. My children are
absolutely.
Greek, so I get it.
Oh, okay. There you go. There you go. But I went to Ibiza and I went to a restaurant called El Chinkaritos. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Right.
It was absolutely stunning. Probably the best meal I ate while I was away, to be honest.
See,
And
that's a big call.
it was all beautiful. Three different aged Hamano Ibéricos that are
Oh,
carved off the leg to order. I think we had like a 6 year old, a 4 year old, and a 2 year old. So I just ordered a plate
beautiful.
of each, and we had this beautiful sea bass that was baked in salt, and they smash it at the table, fillet it, and put it on, and it was cooked to perfection. It was seriously, it was Michelin star standard food. You're on the beach in the most amazing environment, overlooking the water. It was like I'm in heaven. So I would
Wow.
definitely be going back to Ibiza, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, no, very, very Europe. Very Europe.
Mm,
So your
mm.
consultancy business, you're helping young restaurateurs establish themselves in their businesses?
Yeah, so I mean, it varies. It varies from publicans to hotels. I opened up and advised on Henrietta's on Crown Street, which is now super successful. They've opened one in Melbourne.
Wow.
So they're I can go in from a conceptual stage, or I can just help with kitchen designs, menu designs, or I can do the whole lot. So I mean, I suppose through the wealth of information that I got through working with Matt and the exposure of being able to open up the likes of Chiswick and Arias and all these places, it gives you that knowledge and understanding of how you build for efficiencies. And then obviously, you're coming up with some form of a narrative. You know what I mean? So,
Yes.
I really enjoy it. I mean, I've just recently helped with the Powerhouse Museum at Parramatta designing the kitchens there for all their function spaces and stuff, that was pretty epic because
Fantastic.
that's a kitchen that's on the seventh floor. It's got restaurant and it's got event spaces, 7 floors, all out on the open fields at the front. So
Beautiful.
that was pretty epic experience. I do stuff with publicans. I do stuff with small businesses, big businesses. And I suppose, look, when I first left Matt, one of the first things I went out and did was go and open up a consultancy business, and that went berserk to the point where I employed 4 or 5 people because it was just the phones. Once it was in the papers that I was away from it. Because look, let's face it, when you're in a high profile job like that, the phone calls come all the time.
Yes.
I was constantly getting headhunted. I mean, there was even one point when I was at Aria where this English headhunting company were trying to headhunt me and ringing Aria to speak to me to go and see if I would take a job in Russia in Red Square.
Wow.
And it was huge money. And I'd sort of told Matt about it, and he was in the office one night, and it was about the third phone call, and I just went, look, I've got to be a bit careful. I can't lead them on too much. And Matt was in the office when the phone call came, and I said, look, guys, I've had a good think about it. I really do respect and feel very humbled that you're ringing me. I said, but I just can't get it into my head to go to a country that's plus 40 degrees to minus 40 degrees. So
yes.
I sort of
let alone that's Russian. I mean,
yeah, and
you
it
get
was
the
Russia,
politics happening now, the type of food, the type of personalities, I spend a lot of time in Europe, and I've worked with some Russians, and they can be quite hot-headed.
They can. Do you know what? I've never been to Russia, but I would love to go.
Yeah, maybe not right now, but
not right now. Definitely not now. Maybe in a few years once everything settles down. So
Matt was so lucky to have you, but I guess you feel very lucky too to have had him and all of his experience and
look, we complemented each other, and and I know Matt would say that 100%. I worked hard, he worked hard, and he often says this to me, that I gave him a life, and was able to, because we were so in sync with everything that we did, and we got on. We literally got on.
And that's rare. Chefs are always fighting.
Yeah.
What is that about chefs?
Not these days.
Throwing steaks around. I've seen it in the kitchen.
And look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hot-headed at one point in my career, but I think over the years, I think you especially as you get older, you learn to tame that.
Yes.
And I think children actually make you change as well.
I think that's right for all of us.
When you're shouting and screaming at people, just take a look and go, that could be my kid. I don't want that.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, my kitchen now at Boronia, and I get told this all the time, we could be doing, 350 for breakfast, then turn into 120 for lunch. We might have an event next door for 40 people, and then you're going 150 for dinner with an event next door and a off-site catering gig. There is no noise, and I think that just comes through being, you remember your piece.
Yeah, you calm down.
You calm down. I mean, occasionally we might have a little death stare, but other than that, no one raises their voice, and I'm really, really proud of that.
As you should be.
Yeah, so
I mean, that's amazing. But look, I could talk to you all day, but we've already gone over time, unfortunately. We ask all of our guests, Simon, where to from here? It might be your next trip, what you're doing for the rest of the day, your next event. So where to from here?
My next trip, I would love to go to the Maldives.
Wow, I've never been either.
No, I've been there.
Okay.
I've been there. I've been to the Hilton Rangelai Island. This is the one with the underwater restaurant. I actually went there for my honeymoon about 20 plus years ago.
Beautiful.
But it is the most stunning place I've ever been to in my life. It's in my top 3 anyway. Places.
What else is in your top 3 before we go?
Mozambique.
What did you like about Mozambique? I went there and it was so bleak and full of sick people and.
Well, I was there in early 95. I traveled. I hitched through, and they were only out of civil war 4 years. And you're right, it was bleak, but there was a place called Inyambani, and they were building. They just started to build a luxury hotel. And I would love to go back because I was living on the beach of Inyambani for 8 weeks, spearfishing with commercial fishermen that I'd met through hitching down through central Mozambique. And I would go out swimming just off the coastline. You'd have dugongs. It was just magical. So my whole thing was, I'd love to go back. Yeah, nature, go back, see if the hotel's, been built. And then I'll probably jump in a 4x4 and go across Tanzania.
Sounds magnificent. Well, look, so lovely to talk to you. I really hope we get to meet at some stage. I'll definitely come and see you at Boronia at some stage. I'm looking over here. I've got your beautiful cookbook. Thank you. Which is just full of the most gorgeous recipes. And best of luck with your cooking and with your career. And I'd love to speak to you sometime again about your amazing international tales, because it's just fabulous.
Oh, I've got a lot more stories. I'm
sure you do.
You take care. All the best.
Thanks so much. Have a beautiful day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe here and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for regular travel updates. You can also hear our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.